MyFantasySportsTalk.com.
Our first NFL question comes from Theodore Casey. Jags fans need to be quiet. The Titans are going to rule the AFC South. Who do you think they will grab at the number 5 and number 18 pick in the first round? So just my reaction to your first part of that is damn right, dog. If we could just somehow get a player or two hurt off that Houston defense, I think that's the only thing from keeping us from winning the division next year. Is just how good the Houston defense will be. I ain't worried about Indy anymore. I am not worried about Indy any longer. I think they're done. And I think Jacksonville is a step or so behind the Titans, if you really want to know the truth about it. So I'm right there with you, man. I think they're definitely going to be right there in the AFC South title hunt next season, for sure. But as far as that 5th and 18th pick, man, it gets complicated, especially with that 18th pick. So, Dan, what do you have on your board? We've talked about every team so far, number 1 through 4. Now we're up to the Titans. Let's talk about the Titans and what they're going to do in the NFL draft.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Titans are one of the more intriguing teams that you can keep an eye on because I think we both have kind of man crushes on their GM, John Robinson, and he's kind of got that gunslinger approach. As an executive, he'll make a move if he thinks it's the right one, whether it's trade up, trade down. So you never know if they're going to stand pat at where they are. I mean, we've brought up before.
Is it getting kind of late to do that? I mean, I guess not, because we've seen it done over the last couple of years. So
yeah, I think you're going to see things like that happen on draft night. I mean, teams are always trading up on the night of the draft, and that's might be where you ultimately pull the trigger. I think a lot of players might be traded this on draft night as well. You know, whether it be day 1, day 2, or day 3. I think you're going to see players go, which is going to somewhat abnormal. But with the Titans, you don't know if they're going to stay. So if they stand pat, you know, looking at some of the mocks that teams have been putting out there, I've seen a lot of Marshawn Lattimore, the defensive back out of Ohio State. He's definitely an intriguing prospect to watch. I like his tape for his 1 year that he was able to be on the field at Ohio State. That's the problem. Do you want to take a chance 5th overall or on a guy who hasn't proven to be able to stay on the field? His hamstrings are what I quote as glass. They can break at any moment, and you kind of saw that at the combine where he pulled up. He called it a hip pointer, but if you look at the tape, he was grabbing his hamstring. So it worries me. He's athletic. He's a ball hawk. He's instinctive, but he's only done it for 1 year, so you got to show me a little bit more.
But I'm not sure he's fallen out of the top 10 of anyone's draft board.
No, he's definitely going to be taken top 10. You know, I think I'm hyper focusing on those hamstring issues, and because this defensive back class is so deep, you know, it's here or there between prospects, and I think you're going to see some corners get drafted later in the first, even second round that turn out to be better pros than Lattimore. It's just things that I, watching tape, I've fallen in love with certain guys that I like. But if you look at some other options, for the Titans, if they don't go defensive back, I think with one of those 2 picks, whether it be 5 or 18, they're going to have to address offense at some point. I think they're going to go wide receiver.
Okay, so you think some help from Mariota?
I think so, yeah. I mean, they've started to build a nice offensive line, and there aren't a lot of offensive line pieces.
I think you're good there. Let's leave that alone. You've invested so much over the last few years in the draft there. I think they actually have a pretty good, solid offensive line. Let's move away from that.
Exactly, and the only other one obviously would be tight end. So they're gonna get a weapon at that 18 or maybe even the 5 selection. You look at a guy like a Corey Davis. I'd like maybe even John Ross at 18 if he's there. Breaking the combine record. Even a David Njoku out of Miami, he's rising draft boards drastically. He's raw like bloody steak, but he can develop into one heck of a player.
But he's also a top 20 to 25 projected pick too.
Yeah. I mean, he's when I first scouted him, watching his tape, I was hearing chatter of him possibly being a 2nd round pick, but he's definitely skyrocketed, and this tight end class is also pretty deep too, so that has a lot to do with it. But I'll give you one name, and I don't know if you'll like this one or not, Brandon, but Hassan Reddick. I've seen him as high as 5 to the Titans, and he's had he's had an impressive tape, but he's really come on strong with his workouts at the combine. He's an athletic freak in his pro day. So I don't know if you what do you feel if the Titans would have done that? I think it's a little early for Reddick at 5 overall, but it's something I've seen.
Yeah. And okay, and I agree with you. He was the name I had on my list as well. So let me back up just a second, though. We'll get back to Hassan Reddick. But so I'm still kind of holding out hope, I guess, for Jonathan Allen, because I think we need to get back to having that force on the defensive line like Albert Haynesworth was, back in the day. Just someone with a physically dominating presence. And although, Haynesworth is more of a defensive tackle, so, a defensive end, someone to actually rush and get off the edge would be maybe even more impactful if he's the type of player. So I'm still holding out hope that it's Jonathan Allen. But Dan, you weren't so sure about him even going to Tennessee back in the day, but have you seen Jonathan Allen climb up these draft boards? The consensus that I'm seeing now that Jonathan Allen will not be available at number 5.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be tough. I mean, it's basically, I think you're going to have one of two choices at 5. I think either Solomon Thomas or Jonathan Allen are going to be there. I think the 49ers are going to trade out of that 2 spot. That's going to free up Solomon Thomas because I think he's high on their board. But whoever's trading up to 2, I think might even grab a quarterback or somebody that they really, really love, or maybe even a running back. So I think you're going to see one of those 2 guys available. Jonathan Allen, from what I've heard, he's blowing it away in the meetings with teams, mentally and interview wise. Is, like I mentioned before, his medical charts are a little bit concerning with his shoulder issues, durability long term, how he's going to last. So it's going to depend on what the teams weigh, how they weigh out their prospects. I can definitely see him being taken, by the Bears at third overall. But if he's available, which he I think it could be likely, they're going to have an option of one of those 2 defensive ends, I believe. So whether or not the Titans actually pull the trigger on him, it'll be interesting to see.
So if I had to say, now one of these 3 guys, I would say, is going to be available. So it's either Jonathan Allen, Marshawn Lattimore, like you mentioned, and I've seen Malik Hooker. So either Jonathan Allen from Alabama or one of the Ohio State backfield guys. So one of those 3 guys is going to be the pick. I'm thoroughly convinced. Maybe even Jamal Adams, possibly an outside shot. So those 4 guys will be the Titans' 5th pick. Who would you rather have? Who do you think the Titans should have out of those 4 guys? Would you go with Jonathan Allen, take the chance, or would you rather go for that DB help? Now, remember what they did in the offseason so far with the signings, Jonathan Cyprian and I think Logan Ryan, who they get?
Yep, Logan Ryan. Yeah, I mean, they're going to weigh out. I think Robinson's going to see what's my weakness. Is my weakness more defensive line or secondary? And whichever he chooses is the route that they're going to go.
I'm not sure he knows that right now with the addition of those free agents, though. You just don't know. You hadn't seen it.
I think he has to weigh it out with what he believes those free agent signings are going to do. And the fact that he did sign those, might make you think that he might go D-line. I mean, I don't even know, how does the Titans D-line look? Is it deep? Do they have depth? I know they got Kevin Dodd last year in the 2nd round, and I wasn't super high on him. I don't think he had an impressive rookie season at all. So I don't know what their defensive line depth necessarily, how deep it goes. But, I mean, you get Jonathan Allen or Solomon Thomas, they're starting day 1, and you don't have to worry about them. You can put them there, obviously, as long as they're healthy, and just let them go to work.
Okay, so at 18, this is where it gets interesting, and Dan mentioned getting a weapon from Marcus Mariota, which I think the fans would like to see because, defensive pick and defensive lineman, offensive lineman picks, those are boring. The fans want to see offensive playmakers picks. So this is where it could get very interesting, and I would have a hard time here. I think it's going to be a receiver or a tight end, and all the names Dan just mentioned. So I am seeing that if you look at Mel Kiper and Todd McShay's mock draft as of right now, they split, but one has Corey Davis going to the Titans and one has Mike Williams going to the Titans. Why are these guys falling, particularly Mike Williams? Well, I guess Corey Davis too. Why are they falling? Do you think both those guys will fall to as far as 18 now?
No. I can see one falling, but To me, those are the top two wide receivers, and they're at least one is going to be taken before 18th overall. Whether it be the Bills at 10, who can definitely take a wide receiver. There's a lot of options out there. I think the Titans would thankfully take them if they dropped. If they can get a Mike Williams or Corey Davis to fall into their lap. So it would be nice, but I don't see both falling. So they have their choice there. They might get one, but they're not going to get both.
Which is why I included John Ross into that mix, because there's a possibility, the combine stud, the combine god might still be there. I don't think all three of those guys are going to go in the top 17 picks. So I think you'll have a chance at one of those if you really want to pull the trigger. A month or so ago, I was even holding out hope for OJ Howard, but it doesn't look like he's going to be available at 18. Do you think, Dan?
No. I mean, heck, we've heard him go as high as 4 overall to Jacksonville. So I think it's going to be shocking if he escapes the top 10. I know a lot of Bills fans are clamoring for him at 10 overall. That's the guy that they want, which to me is kind of stupid. You have Tyrod Taylor, as your quarterback. Not going to be able to do much with OJ Howard. You already have Charles Clay, who's kind of that same mold. So I don't like that fit, but that's who they want.
So, and David Njoku, who you mentioned, and I also like Evan Ingram from Ole Miss. Saw a lot of him, and I think he's a big playmaker. So if you're looking for tight end specifically, those are a couple of options. And another guy at receiver, which I think will be there at 18 if you want to pull the trigger on him, because he's not really projected to a second-round guy, is Juju Smith-Schuster. Try to say that 4 times real fast, from UFC. So what is your take on Juju, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely going to be there at 18, I would think. He's a physical guy. He's put up impressive numbers at UFC. If you want that physical receiver, which I think they've tried to get in the past, not necessarily John Robinson, but the previous regime, who I know, Brandon, you are who you hold in such high regard, the previous Tennessee regime, but like a guy like a Dorial Green Beckham, who didn't necessarily pan out. They don't have that physical receiving. You have Rashard Matthews, you have a Tajay Sharp, but you need that big possession guy in my mind. So, whether that be a Mike Williams, Smith-Schuster fits that bill too. So if they really like him, take him at 18.
Yep. Just a name to keep your eye on, because I do think at 18 they will look to go offense, and probably is the right move. But let's just say they do go defense and look to shore up that defense even further. You mentioned Hassan Reddick. Does he play linebacker?
So he's a defensive end linebacker combination. It depends ultimately how you can use him. You can use him in a 4-3 scheme as a D end, outside line rush edge linebacker in a 3-4. So it'll be interesting to see how he gets used and what his ultimate fit is on whatever team drafts him. But it's kind of versatile where he can do that. But his main job is going to be to rush the passer.
And just some of the other names I had, if you're looking for that defensive playmaker, Malik McDowell from Michigan State, Caleb Brantley from Florida, Larry Ogunjobi. Sorry, Dan, you probably have. How do you pronounce that? From Charlotte. Ogunjobi?
Yeah, I can watch film on them. I don't necessarily know how to pronounce their last name.
You have the bus on that one. But yeah, anyway, Chris Wormley from Michigan, Dalvin Thompson from Alabama. So I don't know, just some of those names. I think out of all those names we mentioned, that one of those guys will probably be the 18th pick for the Titans, no matter which way they go, to shore up that defense even further or add that offensive weapon for Marcus Mariota. So appreciate the question, Theodore Casey, and I'm right there with you, man. I think they're going to be at top of the AFC South when all said and done next year, and I can't wait to see which way they go. Going to be a surprise. The 18th pick, I think, will be either way, but I think fans will be satisfied with it. And I guess I'm just as curious about the 5th pick. I just don't know. I give kind of holding on to hope that it's Jonathan Allen, because I'd like to see that type of player, that edge pass rusher. But man, I don't know. Just with the free agent signings over the offseason, I'm just not really convinced what they're going for. I don't know, but I can promise you it's probably going to be a defensive player for sure. But thanks for the question, Theodore. For the full podcast, check us out on myfantasysportstalk.com, YouTube, iTunes, and SoundCloud.